Since President Donald Trump's re-election in November 2024, trade tensions between the United States and Canada have escalated, marked by tariffs and countermeasures that have fueled economic uncertainty and strained diplomatic relations. The conflict began on November 25, 2024, when Trump announced via Truth Social his intent to impose a 25% tariff on all imports from Canada and Mexico, citing their alleged failure to secure their borders. He also pledged a 10% tariff on Chinese imports, linking the move to Beijing's role in fentanyl production. The declaration was met with immediate backlash from both Canada and Mexico, with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau denouncing it as reckless and warning of severe economic consequences. Despite Canada's efforts to de-escalate the situation, Trump intensified his stance. On January 20th, 2025, he directed his administration to assess what he called a national emergency caused by illegal migration and fentanyl trafficking from Canada, Mexico, and China. Less than 2 weeks later, on February 1st, 2025, Trump signed an executive order enforcing the 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods, alongside a 10% tariff on Chinese imports, with implementation set for February 4th. In response, Trudeau vowed immediate retaliation, targeting $30 billion CAD in U.S. exports, with plans to expand countermeasures to $125 billion CAD. As economic concerns mounted, Trump unexpectedly paused the tariffs for Canada and Mexico on February 3rd for 1 month after securing separate agreements. Canada committed to enhancing border security and appointing a fentanyl czar, while Mexico pledged additional military deployment along its northern border. However, the U.S. proceeded with its 10% tariffs on Chinese imports as scheduled. Tensions reignited as the pause neared expiration. On February 27th, Trump reaffirmed his plan to implement the 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico starting March 4th, alongside additional tariffs on Chinese imports. Trudeau condemned the decision, calling it unacceptable and punitive, and vowed reciprocal action. By March 3rd, fears of a trade war rattled financial markets, with the S&P 500 suffering its worst trading day since December. At midnight on March 4th, the tariffs officially took effect, sparking immediate retaliatory action. Canada and China both imposed counter-tariffs, with Canada specifically targeting U.S. agriculture, consumer goods, and manufacturing sectors. Mexico, while critical of the tariffs, chose to hold off on immediate retaliation pending diplomatic talks. The economic uncertainty deepened, driving further losses on Wall Street. In a surprising move on March 5th, Trump postponed auto tariffs for 1 month following pressure from major U.S. automakers, easing market fears temporarily. However, on March 6th, he signed an executive order pausing tariffs on goods compliant with the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA. Despite this concession, market volatility persisted, with the S&P 500 and NASDAQ continuing to decline. As the situation unfolds, the future of U.S.-Canada trade relations remains uncertain. Businesses on both sides of the border are scrambling to adapt, while political leaders weigh their next moves. Canada appears determined to stand firm. In an unprecedented countermeasure, Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the U.S. starting March 10th, affecting millions of American homes and businesses in states like Michigan, New York, and Minnesota. Ford warned that Ontario is prepared to escalate further, even considering cutting off power exports entirely if necessary. With both nations digging in, the risk of prolonged economic conflict looms large. Whether a long-term resolution is possible, or if this cycle of tariffs and retaliatory measures will persist, remains to be seen. A 10% duty on energy could have significant repercussions, particularly for sectors such as auto manufacturing, steel production, and retail pricing. During a press conference, Ontario Premier Doug Ford reiterated his firm stance, warning that Ontario might halt electricity exports to U.S. states like New York, Michigan, and Minnesota, which heavily rely on Canadian energy. If they're trying to destroy Ontario, I will do whatever it takes, including cutting off their power supply. With a smile, Ford declared. His strong rhetoric underscores the gravity of the situation as Canada braces for the economic fallout from Trump's trade policies. Ontario is also considering additional retaliatory measures beyond energy exports. Ford has proposed a surcharge on every megawatt of electricity sold to the U.S., increasing costs for American consumers and businesses. He also threatened to cancel a $100 million contract with Elon Musk's Starlink internet service and remove all U.S. alcohol from Liquor Control Board of Ontario (LCBO) stores if the tariffs move forward. The economic impact of Trump's tariffs is substantial, with analysts warning of potential job losses and rising costs across Canada. Ontario, as the country's industrial hub, is particularly vulnerable. The provincial government has earmarked over $40 billion in economic relief, including a $5 billion Protect Ontario Fund, tax deferrals, payroll subsidies, and municipal aid. These financial measures highlight the severity of the trade dispute and its potential consequences for businesses and workers. Despite these preparations, Ford acknowledged the unpredictability of Trump's actions, stating, "We don't know what's coming tomorrow. I'm not even sure President Trump knows what's coming tomorrow." His remark reflects the ongoing uncertainty surrounding U.S. trade policy under Trump, as businesses on both sides of the border brace for the full implementation of tariffs. The Canadian federal government has also pledged a strong response, with Ford supporting a dollar-for-dollar retaliation strategy to match any U.S. trade measures. While he has not specified particular provincial tariffs, his willingness to take drastic action signals Ontario's readiness to escalate if necessary. Canadian Member of Parliament Charlie Angus has been vocal in his criticism of U.S. trade policies and President Trump's remarks about Canada. In a recent address, Angus urged Canadians to boycott U.S. products in response to the tariffs, emphasizing the importance of supporting local businesses and reducing reliance on American goods. His appeal highlights a growing national sentiment to protect Canada's economic interests amid escalating trade tensions. Angus has also pushed back against Trump's repeated suggestions about annexing Canada as the 51st U.S. state, firmly rejecting such notions and reaffirming Canada's sovereignty. Canada is a proud nation with its own identity, and we will not entertain any ideas that compromise our independence, he stated in a recent interview. Further escalating his opposition, Angus sponsored a parliamentary petition urging the Canadian government to bar Trump from attending the upcoming G7 summit in June, underscoring his disapproval of Trump's trade policies and rhetoric toward Canada. As one of the world's largest economies, the U.S. depends heavily on imports across key sectors essential to its growth and stability. From energy and raw materials to food, beverages, and skilled labor, international trade has long been a cornerstone of the American economy. However, under Trump's America First policy, these relationships have come under increasing strain. His administration has imposed tariffs and trade restrictions on both allies and competitors, including Canada, the European Union, and China, aiming to boost domestic industries. While intended to protect American manufacturing, these policies often overlook the complexity of global supply chains built over decades of globalization. The U.S. doesn't just import consumer products, it also relies on foreign resources like crude oil, rare earth minerals, and electricity, which are vital for industrial and technological progress. Additionally, international expertise is crucial for sustaining America's leadership in innovation and research. Let's take a quick pause. If you've been enjoying the video, we'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like button. It helps us reach a wider audience. Also, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback makes a big impact. Thanks for watching. Now let's dive back in. In response to Trump's tariffs, Canada is considering countermeasures that go beyond traditional trade penalties. The integration of Canadian energy into the U.S. remains a critical aspect of North American trade. While U.S. coal imports have significantly declined, Canada continues to supply a modest portion. In 2024, U.S. coal imports totaled 4 million short tons, sourced primarily from Canada, Colombia, and Indonesia. Canadian coal is mainly used for industrial and power generation in Michigan, with some shipments supporting Minnesota's steel industry. A small portion also reaches New England, though its role there is diminishing as cleaner energy alternatives gain momentum. Uranium is another vital resource Canada supplies to the U.S., playing a key role in fueling nuclear reactors. In 2024, the U.S. imported 50 million pounds of uranium, with Canada contributing 20% of the total supply. This uranium is essential for nuclear plants in states such as Illinois, which operates the largest number of nuclear reactors in the country. South Carolina and North Carolina also rely heavily on Canadian uranium, while Pennsylvania and Tennessee benefit from a stable supply for their nuclear energy production and processing facilities. Despite the U.S.'s significant dependence on Canadian energy imports, the Trump administration imposed tariffs on Canadian goods, citing concerns over drug trafficking and illegal immigration. However, data shows that Canada is responsible for only a negligible fraction, around 0.2% of the fentanyl entering the U.S., with most originating from China and Mexico. This raises questions about the true motivations behind the tariffs, suggesting that economic and strategic factors may be at play. One possible explanation is a broader ambition to secure control over Canada's vast natural resources, including its mineral, oil, and gas reserves, which are crucial to the U.S. economy. Additionally, Canada's geographical position provides strategic advantages in the Arctic, a region gaining geopolitical significance due to its untapped resources and emerging shipping routes. National security concerns may also be a factor. By annexing Canada, the U.S. would eliminate its northern border, simplifying defense logistics and reinforcing North American security. This perspective aligns with historical doctrines, emphasizing continental security, and may be fueling the administration's rhetoric. Domestically, such annexation threats could serve as a political strategy to rally nationalist sentiment. A hardline stance on trade and border security might help the administration solidify its voter base, distract from internal challenges, and project strength on the global stage. Another possibility is that these extreme measures function as a negotiation tactic to pressure Canada into trade concessions. By introducing aggressive policies, the administration could be seeking leverage to bring Canada to the bargaining table under less favorable terms. Analysts suggest that these trade policies may have broader strategic objectives. Some speculate that the tariffs are designed to push Canada into greater alignment with U.S. economic and geopolitical interests. This theory is reinforced by Trump's repeated comments about annexing Canada as a 51st state, potentially linking tariff relief to such an outcome. That's all for today's analysis. If you found this video insightful, please consider supporting us by liking and subscribing. Your engagement helps us continue to provide in-depth geopolitical coverage. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Geopolitical Analyst.